On the other hand, for cross-border payments, Visa and MasterCard have blamed fraud and growing competition for the increase in their cross-border fees since the UK left the European Union. A post on parliament.uk website stated that in October 2021, Visa and MasterCard increased their cross-border interchange fees on purchases made by UK consumers to European businesses and by European consumers to UK businesses. Fees increased from 0.2% to 1.15% for debit cards and 0.3% to 1.5% for credit card transactions. Previously, fees had been capped by EU regulation. Joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, to discuss cross-border transactions and digital payments across Africa is Akshay Grover. He's the group CEO at Cellulant. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with the cross-border transactions that Visa and MasterCard were blaming on, fraud and competition for their increase in cross-border fees. In May, Cellulant partnered with the fintech company Gray to facilitate their international money transfer. So what's your read on cross-border fees on the African continent? Are they too high? If yes, can they be reduced?
Yeah, I think it's a well-established fact that cross-border fee for transactions involving Africa are one of the highest in the world, and that's a reflection of the way the market is, but also things like dollar liquidity, currency liquidity, which impact the overall currency rates and therefore the costs of these transactions. One of Cellulant's main objectives really has been to try and reduce these transaction costs so that we can reduce the quantum of friction for end consumers and make it more and more easy to use.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, how does, your payment platform ensure safety for cross-border payments?
Yes, it does. I think we are PCI DSS certified. All the certifications that we possibly need on security are all procured. We comply with lots of local regulations which the central banks impose on us. So I would say every transaction is pretty secure. We have a lot of anti-money laundering or compliance systems that detect transactions and so on and so forth, just like any financial institution.
Great stuff. Can you talk to us about another collaboration in Zambia this time with the fashion brand LC Waikiki?
Yeah. What Cellulant is trying to do, as I said earlier, was trying to reduce friction on transactions. And one of the things you realize when you walk into a store very often is that the store says, I will accept a credit card payment or I'll accept cash. Sometimes it'll say, I'll accept Airtel, but you have an MTN phone. And now how do you pay an Airtel pay bill with an MTN phone? We want to remove these restrictions or these, let's call it artificial roadblocks, and allow any merchant to collect from whichever payment method the customer wants to use to pay. That's the solution we've offered to Waikiki. So it doesn't matter which mobile operator you are on. Are you on MTN? Are you on Airtel? Are you on Vodafone, Safaricom? Whatever the case might be, you can walk into a store and pay from whichever method you want, and the merchant would get credited for that amount. So the idea is to reduce friction and create ease, convenience for the end customer as well as the merchant.
Great stuff. Now, I want to ask you about the platform. I think Ting is the platform being used with LC Waikiki. Is that the same for the cross-border payments with Gray?
Yes, it is. We have a unified platform that we call Ting, through which all our transactions get routed, and it's a single multimodal, multi-country, single point of connection platform.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, I want to get to another thing. There's a blog post on the Cellulant website that talks about the importance of B2B, business-to-business collaborations to drive growth. Why are these collaborations important, and can some of these collaborations happen with a competitor?
Absolutely. In fact, we power many of our competitors because we have infrastructure in more than 35 countries on payments. And this infrastructure is used by some of our competitors also to provide services to their end consumers. And so we like to think of payments as an ecosystem play, as a play where we're trying to make the lives of consumers and merchants easier. and we do not want to restrict who can travel on our pipes, subject to them being legitimate and having the relevant regulatory approvals to do business in Africa.
That's really great. So very interesting. So you can still grow market share and still expand by doing that, even by collaborating with a competitor.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. Okay, speaking of competitors, let me ask you this. Google this week launched its wallet in South Africa. It plans to expand to other African nations. Is there room to compete with a company of that size? What do you make of their foray into the African continent with regard to payments?
See, one of the things you'll notice about Cellulant and Ting is that today we aren't really competing in the consumer space, if I can use that word. So as a consumer, yes, you can download a Ting app. There is an app, but it's not our primary focus. Our primary focus is enabling merchants or businesses to transact in Africa. And so when Google Pay, which launches a consumer application, right, what we would do is we would allow Google Pay to ride on our infrastructure and to enable customers to use their M-Pesa wallet, for example, or an Airtel Money wallet, right, to make a payment. So Google Pay will be someone that we would actually collaborate with, provide the infrastructure on payments that we have built over the last 10 years in Africa, and they would be using our platform and infrastructure to expand. And I don't want to reveal details which are confidential, but I would say, we welcome players like Google, like Amazon Pay, to come into Africa and use our infrastructure to deliver their services.
Wow. Okay. I realize your strategy is fascinating. And so, as far as the consumer side, any plans to get in there in the near future, or you're still going to stick with the strategy for right now?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, I said. So you said you're not really focused on the consumer side. It's just B2B and keeping your infrastructure in place for other businesses. So is that the strategy in place? And or any plans to focus on consumers in the near future?
At this point, no. We want to remain focused on our core customer base, which are our merchants, who we serve. Those are our core customers. We continue to offer consumer services that we've been doing for several years, such as bill payments and so on. But we aren't. That's not our core focus. Our core focus is merchants.
Great stuff. I want to ask you about a survey that another B2B payments firm, Duplo, carried out. This is a question that they asked. What do you like about your current payment methods? And customization, 5%, affordability, 10%, digitized processes, 10%, speed, 18%, reliability and ease of use were the top two answers there from their survey. What's your takeaway from this survey?
I mean, at the end of the day, with digital payments, what are we trying to do? We're really trying to make it very easy to pay for goods and services. Yeah. So I'm not very surprised, or I don't have a different opinion than what this survey seems to suggest, which is that it makes life easier for the consumer, it makes life easier for the merchant, and therefore reliability and ease of use is one of the core reasons why people continue to use the service.
And what kind of headwinds are facing digital payments on the African continent, and how are players like yourself trying to overcome them?
I think I wouldn't say headwinds. I would say to you that the market is maturing. I think regulation is maturing. I think how fintech players like ourselves will have a separate space from financial institutions. How do you demarcate that space, right? Who is a fintech? Who's a financial institution? What should a fintech comply with? What should a financial institution like a bank comply with? How do you differentiate between the two, right? I think some of that is evolving. And I think fintechs are placed very well to be adaptive to that adaptive environment. And I think that's what's happening right now as we speak.
Great stuff. Can you share any upcoming expansion plans for Cellulant on the continent?
Last year we expanded to almost 8 new countries. Egypt, South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, DRC, Ethiopia, Gabon, and so on and so forth. So this year, 2022, we are really focusing our efforts on going deeper into these markets rather than opening up new markets in Africa at this point. I think once we've got sufficient depth in these markets, we'd relook at further geographical expansion.
All right. And so what's your outlook, I guess, for the payment space on the African continent?
I think we're just at the start of the journey. I feel very optimistic that we're probably at the cusp of the start of a boom cycle in fintech and digital payments that's probably going to last for the next, I don't know, at least a decade, if not 2 decades.
And actually, I'm glad you meant that's very optimistic take. But if I can squeeze one more question out of you, you've seen what's been happening with tech stocks overseas, and the meltdown, crypto as well. But crypto, maybe that's not really part of the conversation here. But don't you think that's impacted valuations and funding for startups? And I guess, or does that does not affect you at all?
I think the global market environment has to impact everyone. I think availability of capital, when it gets squeezed, when interest rates increase, investors become less aggressive, valuations decline. I think it's hard to say in the kind of world that we are operating in today that it will not affect us. It is affecting us, yeah. But do I think that changes the long-term outlook for fintech businesses in Africa? I think the answer is a vehement no. I think this is a business and set of businesses and a space that will continue to grow, as I said, at least for a decade. Yes, valuations go up, sometimes they come down. I think you just have to live through these economic cycles, weather them, and continue on the journey that we've undertaken.
Mr. Akshay Grover, Group CEO, Cellulant, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your inputs on the fintech space, payment space across the African continent. Thank you so much. You're watching the Global Business Report here on Rise News. Up next, we head to Abuja and we talk about agriculture, technology, and Nigerian youth. Do stay tuned.